Just a couple of things from our side. Welcome to Copilot Zero to Hero Season 2, now with added agents. In this season, we're really delving into the concept of agentic AI. We put it not just the retrieval stuff that everyone's been used to. If you are new, I don't know how you stumbled into the link to join the meeting, but if you head over to copilot0tohero.co.za, the updated website is there. If you scroll down to the bottom, you'll be able to find Season 1's content, which should have all the YouTube videos there, where we talked about Microsoft 365 Copilot specifically. If you joined because you got a notification on LinkedIn, we actually have a LinkedIn group. It's in the chat right now. Please feel free to join it. It's not going to cost you anything. And most of these updates typically get sent across there. Some other things, we do have a YouTube channel, like I said, Copilot Zero to Hero, where all the videos will be added. These presentations typically get added to the GitHub repo. We've got a GitHub repo as well, and that's in the Q&A section, I think, of the website. I need to check.
I'll share it now, Al.
Yeah. And then we also have the Microsoft 365 South Africa user group, which is the meetup group. If you haven't joined that, please do. We are going to be going through session 7. So there's only 3 other sessions left over for Season 2. This happens on the second Tuesday of every month. Each season has 10 sessions. So we are nearing the tail end of everything that happens inside of Microsoft 365 Copilot from an agentic perspective. Lots of updates over the last 2 months. Microsoft talking about AI harnesses like it's a thing, when it's been a thing for the longest time. Also, the new Copilot Studio experience has gone GA. It's now generally available. Updates on licensing, very, very important. I think the new license updates dropped on the 4th of August this year. Vitally important you understand how all of these things work. Pun intended, work IQ and anything that starts with, that ends in IQ is a Copilot credit. Copilot credit usage. It's not standard, like work IQ and Microsoft IQ wasn't there before, but it's not standard with if you're building agents using work IQ, you're going to either have to have a pay-as-you-go subscription enabled, or you're actually going to have to buy Copilot credits. Kind of bizarre. No other AI company does it this way. So understand that there are massive license implications. Copilot Co-work, Copilot credits. Standard connectors, no Copilot credits. Anything outside of that, please do yourself a favor and look at the pricing before you start building agents. And even when you run a test, according to Carica, it actually burns credits. So be very aware. And then there's a whole GitHub ecosystem on the GitHub Copilot ecosystem on the back of this for some stuff. But be very, very aware of how Microsoft does licensing and pricing for this. It's not like there's a M365 Copilot Pro and a Pro Max subscription like you get with Claude, where you can have a Max 5 and a Max 20, where you pay $100 and $200, and then you can go smash tokens at will. Microsoft doesn't price it that way. Sorry, Warren works for Microsoft. I am allowed to speak about these things as a disgruntled person because I can. Anyhow, today we're going to be talking about Foundry Agent to Copilot Studio and how you can bring your own models into Copilot Studio. Is that what we're going to be focusing, or at least talking about, was?
Yeah, it is. But I'm actually going to touch on a lot of the new stuff as well. I mean, we don't want to just stop at the models, but we want to stop at sort of everything, right? Because it's all about agents. So okay. I'm gonna take it to agents, and yeah, we'll go from there.
All right. So I'm going to hand over to Warren DeToy, Cloud Solution Architect and all name, Microsoft Oracle, representing Microsoft South Africa today, and whatever Pokemon t-shirt he is wearing, because he's a massive Pokey. Is there a name for people like My Little Ponies? You call them bronies. I
Actually,
don't know. Is there like a Pokemon?
Yeah, Pokemon. Yeah, I like that.
All right, over to you. I'm going to stop talking.
All right, cool. Thanks. Okay, well, it's super cool to be back. I mean, season 2, season 1 was amazing, and it's cool to be back in this one. And I really enjoy creating the content for this session because it's something that I generally don't touch very often. And it sort of stretches my legs a bit. It's one of those things where, you don't like, it's one of those things that you can't just instinctively go, hey, well, I actually know how that works, whatever the case may be is. And then, not only that is you get into the portal, whether it's the M365 admin portal or the Power Platform admin portal or whatever the case may be is. And then you sit there and you're like, it should work like this. But it doesn't. It works the other way. Or the last way that you actually think it would work. Lord alone knows why. But anyway, it's a good experience and super enjoy learning about it. And that's probably the reason why I put that picture up there. Because there was one point where I was pulling my hair out. Because there was something that I was trying to do in Copilot Studio. And I couldn't get it to work. But it was because I was in Copilot Studio trying to build something for Copilot when I should have actually been in the Power Platform. So I had to actually build it in Power Platform to figure out what I was doing, but it was actually for Copilot. So I think there's sort of still that sort of transition that needs to happen between Power Platform and Copilot. But anyway, so where do we go from here? The agenda. So I'll give you the scenario, the brain fart that I had, and the reason why we're here. Look, Copilot Studio versus Foundry. I mean, it's always one of those questions that everybody asks, and it's like, okay, well, should I be using Copilot Studio to build my agents, or should I just be going directly to Foundry and building it over there? And why does Microsoft have 2 versions of this thing? Like, what's the point? And then sort of putting them together, what the catalogs look like, grounding the agents, the data itself. And then I'm going to do some demos. And then, if you wanted to build a lab yourself, it's actually not that hard. And believe it or not, if you have like an Azure subscription, you've got your $150 for your MSDN, you could spin something like this up and test it out, because in my demo tenant, I actually don't have any Copilot licenses. It's like free, right? I'm using like the Copilot Studio, just log in and do your thing. So we'll go through that as we get there. So what did I do? So, okay, I was in the car listening to some podcasts. I generally listen to Andrew Huberman, and Andrew Huberman and Tim Ferriss. I've also always been a fan of Tim Ferriss. Read his books.
Neither of them talk about anything Copilot or Foundry.
No. They're, Tim Ferriss invented biohacking, like pretty much. Anyway, so
4-hour work week.
Yes, 4-hour work week, correct, 100%. And so he's been doing it a very, very long time, and he's got all of his podcasts have been transcripted, which is a treasure trove of information if you've got text embedding models, right? Ding, ding, ding. Then Andrew Huberman also has a treasure trove of podcasts, but they are not transcribed. And I'll show you exactly why I messed up. But anyway, we live and we learn. So what if I could take the health data that I have, and I've been measuring my health data for a very long time. What happens if I could take the health data that I have on me, and I could take, let's say, the 30 years of experience that Professor Andrew Huberman and Tim Ferriss have on their podcasts, and sort of smash them all together with a bunch of AI and see how I could optimize my future. Like, could I do it? Is it possible? And turns out, yeah, you sort of can. So do we use Foundry? Where do we use Foundry? And then can we put this into Copilot as well? And where the AI helps, it helps with everything, right? So transcribing can be done with a model and there are a couple of them, but choose the right one. Otherwise, as you'll learn, cost. Indexing, something that needs to be done regularly, right? There's services inside of Azure that do this, and they can be connected up to Copilot Studio as well. Then you've got the aggregation. If you're trying to build a rather large corpus, then your scheduling, how often is this supposed to be done? And then again, you stick to a budget. Now, if you had, let's say, a large machine like Al's got at home, right? Most of the models that I use for this particular situation could be run at home, right? It would have taken probably 5 or 6 days to do the transcription of all like 600 podcasts, but that's actually not bad, right? All things considered, it's like a good 800 or 900 hours worth of podcasting, and then that goes into text. So ambitious project, let's see how we did. So if we have to start looking at the capabilities of the two, right? Copilot Studio, that managed software as a service. There's no infrastructure at all that you have to manage. It plugs into everything. It's got connectors, it's got APIs, it's got MCP bits and pieces, you've got governance straight out the box, all that lovely stuff. But again, a lot of people go and they say, well, it's simpler. You can go and you can create an agent and you can go and create this and that and the next thing, clickety, 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 low code, blah, blah, blah. But to be completely honest with you, it's actually not. You can do that in Foundry as well. So if you're looking at the barrier to entry, ideally what you should be looking at is which one's going to be easier for the team doing it, right? So if you look on the Foundry side, if you've got a bunch of developers, then give them Foundry. Don't give a bunch of developers Copilot Studio, it's going to slow them down, and vice versa. So similarly, Microsoft Foundry, agent framework, semantic kernel, well, agent framework, semantic kernel's going, and all of the other bits and pieces that sort of support it. So you've got Cosmos DB, and Cosmos DB supports vectors and all that lovely stuff. You've got GitHub Copilot, CI/CD pipelines. You can do private networking, which you'll see I've done a little bit of later, all that lovely stuff. But don't make the choice, like I said, based on what's easier or not. They both have very similar capabilities. The barrier to entry is the winner here, all right? So if the person's used to using normal Copilot Studio or used to working in a browser, just let them do it. If they want to use Foundry, let them do it that way. All right, there's no real choice there because the functionality is quite similar. Okay, as you know, Microsoft IQ, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but it's pretty much everything now, right? So everything is Microsoft IQ. So it'll pretty much go through the entire environment, and I'll show you some of the fundamentals of what makes Microsoft IQ so cool, and how it connects everything all up. So I just thought I'd throw this slide in there, so you can see exactly what I do a little bit later. Now, when we start doing the connectivity between the two, it is in preview, and I'll show it to you. And there are some caveats. So unfortunately, like I found, it was super hard, but for instance, like if you're using the AI search service, and AI search is Foundry IQ, it's just Foundry IQ renamed. The project endpoint URL and the search service need to be public, unless, of course, you've got one of those aggregators. But obviously, it being in preview, there's some limitations around those aggregators. You get this 404 version not found. It's like a mess. So just like make it public for whatever it is that you're testing. It's going to save you a lot of pain. I had mine private for a while, and it was a disaster until I figured out that I needed to make it public. And again, good thing, it does support key authentication. It does support AAD as well. So if you like Microsoft, we disable API key authentication So it only uses AAD. So AAD is probably the better way to go here. And whether you're connecting up to the agent and you're calling the agent and you're making the agent do something inside of Foundry, and the agent's connected up to all of the different data sources and the knowledge and the MCP tools and all that lovely stuff, or you're actually taking Copilot Studio, you're building the agent inside of Copilot and you're connecting it directly to the search service or Foundry IQ. You can do both. And I'll show you exactly how you would do the configuration and how you can do the connectors for those two. And yeah, brand new. And so my brain hurt when it came to these connectors, because configuring those connectors doesn't happen in Copilot Studio. It happens in the Power Platform admin, which is very counterintuitive. Tracy, we need to fix this. Anyway, so I don't know. I suppose maybe when it hits GA, it'll probably change. Anyway, okay. When it comes to swapping the models, you can just quite easily swap them. And again, use the model that's suited for the purpose. Don't just choose a model because you choose a model. So if I'll take an example, building an application, I built an application called Compliance IQ. And what it does is it goes and reads documents, compliance documents, and it pulls compliance controls out of the documents. And using a reasoning model, it was less accurate than just using a normal model. We found that it's sort of like overthought, and it ended up missing a whole bunch of stuff, getting itself into loops and missing things and all sorts of stuff. We gave it a more stupid model, and it worked much better, as well as it being much cheaper as well. So you'll find sometimes just throwing a much cheaper model at it generally fit for purpose, and it works a lot better. You'll see hosted agents you can also do as well. We've got containers running inside of Azure. I'll show you that as well. And I'll show you sort of how I would also access the information from Foundry IQ or the Azure Search Service via MCP server from some of my other agents that are sitting inside of the environment as well. When it comes to the cost model is like Al said. From the Foundry side and the Copilot Studio side, you can have them both. They're both consumption-based. Foundry IQ also. So building, testing, and evaluating, please, they do consume credits. So it's going to cost you money, and I'll show you how much money it actually cost me, because I completely blundered this one up. And also, one of those things where I had a long-running job because I had 800 hours of podcast transcribing to do. I let it run, and I let the GitHub Copilot, or at least the agent, build me a watchdog. And this watchdog sat there watching nothing because it built the watchdog wrong, and I didn't check what it built. So as a result, it started looping, and it was looping on a specific piece of audio. When I woke up in the morning, it was still looping on that specific piece of audio, towing my tokens. So needless to say, there was a lot of extra spend on a specific piece of audio that it got stuck on, which it should have never got stuck on in the first place. So I should have built some sort of resiliency into that while it was doing the transcription. When it comes to the grounding of these specific agents, you can ground them pretty much on any of the information that's there, which is really cool. In this case, I'm able to ground the information on the AI search index. And that AI search index is the search index that I created from the transcriptions of every single one of those podcasts. So I took the entire corpus, I then created a search index with Azure AI Search, and we can go in and then we can ground the agent in that as well. And then when I ask it a question, I mean, I can ask it silly questions about Andrew Huberman if I wanted to, but again, the types of questions I'm trying to ask it are perhaps maybe something about my sleep or something about my nutrition or whatever the case may be. And that's also pretty cool. Something else is the authentication pass-through as well. So if I've got authentication happening on the Foundry side and I connect it up to Copilot Studio and I've got that connector running, it's going to auth as the person that's using the agent inside of Copilot. So I've got that configured. I'm in Copilot, I'm logged in as me. I'm going to hit Foundry as me. If I was logged in as, let's say, Tracy, I would hit Foundry logged in as Tracy. So that's quite cool as far as the connector is concerned as well. Right, enterprise grade by default. Now, this is a very, very large topic when it comes to, I don't want to use the buzzword, but let's say sovereignty, right? So sovereignty is one of those things that everybody's using right now about where does the data live, okay? How do we ensure that the data stays where it's supposed to be? How do we know where it's being inferenced? How do we know that it's being encrypted, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Now, a lot of this stuff can be answered from an Azure perspective and from an M365 perspective. So with one of the new features that Microsoft just launched, it's called EKM, External Key Management. External key management allows you to store your encryption keys outside of Microsoft's cloud. And similarly, you can actually do customer managed keys for M365 and its services. So if you wanted to, there's some documentation where what you can do is you can say, I'd like my Exchange encryption keys, my SharePoint encryption keys to not be stored inside of Microsoft's cloud. I'd like them to be stored inside of a managed HSM. That managed HSM sits inside of Azure as a service. And then that managed HSM outsources the key management to an HSM that sits on premises. Now, there's a lot of caveats to this. So for instance, you lose access to that HSM for a specific amount of time, or let's say ExpressRoute link goes down, or somebody decides to cut the fiber optic cables again, or whatever the case may be, is shit goes down. Like, that's it. So for instance, you've got TDE encryption, or if you've got Azure disk encryption or full host encryption on your Azure VMs, those things reboot, you toast. Like if it can't get hold of those keys, those root keys, you like that's it. Sorry about it. However, you remain sovereign. if that's the point. So that's there. But again, I digress. The residency of the data, you know where it is, you know where it's sitting, you've deployed the resources. As far as inferencing goes, when you deploy the Foundry models, you've got different deployment methods. So you've got data zone deployment methods, you've got standard, you've got global. Now, depending on the type of deployment method you choose, will tell you, or at least dictate, where that model is going to be and where the GPU inferencing is going to be. So for instance, if you choose data zone and then you choose a region, you know that the GPU inferencing is going to happen in that specific zone. Let's say United States or Europe or here, and the inferencing will happen there. You'll find also, if you do enough digging around, you'll see that we've also got the Copilot regions, and where Copilot inferencing and Copilot data processing is done. You'll see that it's different. So you've got where your data is stored, where your data is processed, and where your data is inferenced. They are different. So go have a look at that, and you'll be surprised to find out exactly where the data is going, or at least where the stuff's being inferenced. Guardrails are there as well. We got guardrails for making sure that you don't break things as far as Azure policy is concerned. We've also got intra-identity for pretty much everything, and fine-grained tokens for fine-grained access control for role-based access control for all sorts of things. I mean, we have gone super, super fine when it comes to some of these roles, so that you can make sure that you can do a whole bunch of really cool stuff with it. And yeah, I touched on customer managed keys, bring your own storage. Yeah, and you can connect to stuff on premises as well, which is also pretty cool. which I do a little bit, but I probably won't show in the demo unless we've got some time. And that's enough of me talking. So let's get into what broke my brain. So let me pull this guy up. There we are. Okay. Right. Visible. All right. So we have Azure subscription. Azure subscription has lots of stuff in it. We'll start going through it piece by piece. We have virtual WAN. Virtual WAN spans the globe. And I just want to show you the topology. So how it sort of works is there's a vWAN in UAE North, vWAN hub, and there's a vWAN hub in South Africa. We have an express route. Express route terminates in a data center in South Africa, where we have a bunch of machines doing some things. And then we've got a bunch of VNets with some servers in them. Most of my workloads actually sit in the South African VNets, and they peered to the South African hub over here. Then these two hubs are connected up together. And then up over here, you'll see that I've peered some Sweden VNets. The reason I've peered the Sweden VNets is because Sweden's the best place for AI. Because although I suppose they're probably not as cold as South Africa right now, but pretty cold. So they get the latest models.
This is all higher grade. You'd need none of these things to get Foundry to talk to Copilot.
Well, you need it if you want to be private. You need it if you want to keep everything inside.
No, this is you being excessive.
That's okay. I'll be excessive.
This express route, and people don't have express route. You don't need express route.
Well, everybody actually needs an express route. No, I'm kidding. Anybody that's compliant needs an express route. But anyway, okay.
Nobody's sniffing packets across the network.
Right.
Encrypted in transit, right?
We go to the interesting stuffs. Here is my Foundry, okay? And can anybody notice my, for lack of a better word, F up?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Can you see it? Yeah. Okay, so $1,400. Whoops. Okay, so $1,400 on GPT Audio 1.5, doing the transcription of about 300 or so podcasts. Whoops. Wasn't supposed to happen. Big mistake, loop, wrong model, learned a lesson. So what we do is we choose GPT-4o Mini Transcribe, and the same amount of data to be transcribed, actually more, probably cost about like $45 or something dumb, but it was a very, very hard lesson learned. Anyway, then we've got our text embedding model, which has also been deployed. I've got a bunch of other models that I'm testing, but those are the main ones. Okay, and then you'll see under agents, I built an agent. Okay, and inside of the agent, you'll see I've told the agent what I want it to be. It is a Huberman Lab agent, and it's got a whole bunch of information. It's built on this. You have to go check that, blah, 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 etc., etc., etc. And you'll see there that it's grounded in Azure AI Search. So if we go back to Azure and we go to AI Search, Foundry IQ, that's the service there. And you'll see that I've got a knowledge base. And inside that knowledge base, I've got a search index with a chat completion model that's attached to it. Description, how the retrieval is going to work. And you'll see that there's an index attached to that as well. Okay, so that's the data. That's how big the index is, right? That's how big the vector index is. And now, between those two, I have a running agent, right? I have a running thing that's going to do some stuff. So I can say, what does Andrew say about NSDR? And hopefully I sacrificed enough chickens to the demo gods and it like works.
I'm sure you can tell us what NSDR is, right?
Yeah, non-sleep deep rest.
Okay.
Yoga Nidra.
It's the Morellans, right?
It's like meditation.
It's a rapid eye movement that you still need.
Yeah, it's and so the cool thing is now it's obviously doing citations, which podcast, which podcast, how many minutes into it. So you can go, you can have a look, blah blah blah, where it found it, how long it took, etc. etc. So we've got this great thing. So now this is in Foundry, and obviously I could do a whole bunch of cool stuff with Foundry. I'm a developer. I've got some cool stuff now. We want to put it into Copilot. This is where my brain broke, because it was supposed to work a specific way, but it doesn't. So we go into the settings of Copilot, now how Copilot is supposed to work. So we go into Power Apps first. Okay, the reason we go into Power Apps is, firstly, we need an environment. So Karika would be able to tell you this. You can go in here and you can create yourself an environment inside of the admin center. You just create yourself an environment. Now, this doesn't actually cost anything, right? So you don't actually have to worry about this. So you can go ahead and you can do that. So create yourself one of those, and then Copilot settings. And you can enable all the different settings for Copilot. But again, you're doing all of this stuff inside of our platform, which again, didn't really know, but we did. Then we can set up billing inside of this as well, which is where you set up your pay-as-you-go bits and bobs as well, which is somewhere. I want to show you the payments.
It's the most important thing you need to think about.
Yes, I want to show where I put the limits, man. Where did I do it?
Yeah, but is it a hard limit though?
There it is. So,
or does it just tell you that you hit your limit?
Yeah, created the Copilot billing plan. So it's licensing, billing plan, create billing plan, new billing plan, and then you add the target environment into that. And then you'll see that with Copilot, environments, usage, you'll see manage billing plans. I've linked it to my subscription. Okay.
Which is where your credit card is, right?
Yeah. So I've linked it to my Azure subscription. And you can see that it's got a target resource group, what the meter is, and which subscription it's going to, and what the region it is for. And you can say edit plan, and then you can add or remove the environment from there. Now, going back to the capacity side of things.
Wait. Go back quickly. One screen.
Where?
Back to manage billing plans.
Mm-hmm.
No, other one. It's under products, Copilot Studio.
Oh, hold on, wait. Actually, Copilot Studio. Yeah. And then environment.
Yeah. You have it set up. Why does it say your pay-as-you-go is 0? Always no.
There.
Yeah.
Oh, because I don't actually have any other licenses. Like I don't have like other licenses. I've only got this setup. I don't have anything else set up on this. I don't have anything else. Also, remember, I actually haven't used like Copilot at all. Like I haven't, like this is empty. Like I haven't done anything in here. So manage Copilot credits. See, I haven't done anything in this one. Now I could say build to my pay-as-you-go plan because I haven't actually set that up. That's off. Clever.
Yeah, that's odd. That means they removed the essentially wall they put in place where you need to have Copilot credits and the pay-as-you-go.
Remember though, I did create this as a developer environment. So
yeah, but
when
also you're not necessarily, a lot of customers are not necessarily going to go buy Copilot credits when they want to test something. They'll rather just pay the $60 or $70 to see if it works. And then customers that are building Copilot Studio agents, that's not, I mean, we've built a few of these things, and typically the customer will go, well, if we go over $200 for this specific use case in a month, then by all means we'll buy Copilot credits. But I mean, you just need you need a credit card behind the subscription so that they can invoice you, right? Don't do that for well, you need that if you buy Copilot credits. You don't need, you need it either way. You can't just have Copilot credits because your earlier on when I asked about the budget that you can set, right? So it's like an Azure spend budget. It doesn't switch things off when it stops working. That's why when you buy Copilot credits, it's still once a pay-as-you-go subscription, so that if you hit that $200 25,000 message limit, it will just kick over to pay-as-you-go, so it doesn't stop the service from running. It's the same with Azure, right? You can go over your budget or that limit that you set. Doesn't stop shit from running. It doesn't switch it off until you pay. That's why you always need pay-as-you-go. Because it's a fallback method for Copilot credits, because you've got a capacity in Copilot credits. They want Azure, they want a pay-as-you-go subscription. It's the same for OCRing that you switch on for your tenant. It's linked to, there's always a credit card or some billing mechanism. There's a billing method, right? It could be Azure Plan, but there's a billing method attached to these things, because Microsoft will never stop a service from running because you've hit a limit. They don't do that. They want all your money.
Yeah, this is now what I'm seeing on his screen. What I quickly checked on mine is on a line, because they've got, they split it out. You've got the Teams plan and you've got the standalone Copilot Studio subscription.
Yeah, but you're talking about a license now, right?
Yeah, but so at the moment, if I go to, I've got access to my dev environment is set up against the resource group. So for Dataverse and what, all that's already done.
Yeah.
But that exact same account can't access that environment via the Copilot Studio preview, because it keeps saying upgrade your license, even though the pay-as-you-go has been set up, but there's no tenant level license in place. And that's where they get you at the moment.
Yeah.
So either way, you need that you need to buy a license pack, because as soon as that trial license dissolves, you're stuck.
Yeah.
There's no way to freely test this stuff at the moment for more than 30 days?
Yeah.
But you shouldn't test for more than 30 days.
Oh, you've never met a client.
That's their problem. That sounds like a client problem. I mean, Microsoft gives you, you can extend the trial, right? And you can typically extend the trial. I know customers that I've extended Copilot license trials, right? And then reoccurring billing, you switch off. Customers need to pull finger. Microsoft's not yet to just continually give you things, especially now that this is probably the most expensive trial of anything that runs inside of Microsoft.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
True. But yeah, I'm kind of salty about the fact that we can't just run it on a pay-as-you-go basis through and through.
Look, me too, dude, because like this is one of those things where I actually can't load a license into this tenant because it's one of those gated demo things where like it's like I'm an Azure CSA, that's I just don't get it, right? If I want to test anything sort of M365 Copilot Studio related, I need to go build like a CDX tenant or whatever the case may be. So surprising getting this far is actually, yeah, Copilot Studio sort of lets you in, but although I had so many issues getting into Copilot Studio when it tried to create that default environment. So creating the default environment and it sort of puts that default GUID up at the top. Even if I don't know, maybe even if I had to go to it now. So there's this default environment here that it spins up for Copilot Studio the first time you go to it. It just sits there like that's that. Like it didn't even want to go. I mean, now it does, but it like didn't want to move. It didn't want to do anything.
I had to also put in my different environment ID that I specifically created to kind of have it at least load in the new experience. But it seems like they have resolved it.
Jeez, it was annoying. Hey, I really thought that I was doing something wrong.
No, because Copilot Studio being part of the Power Platform, everything defaults to the default environment. But yeah,
wasn't working. Hey, I just couldn't get it to
I'm
load.
just glad they
eventually
fixed
I
it.
spun it up and then I changed the GUID up at the top and then it brought me in and then I was like, okay, cool, happy days.
Yeah.
And then also like again, this is the piece that again wasn't very intuitive at all. You know, you got to have this new experience button turned on, new connection, right? And then you sort of connect to Azure. You've got Foundry IQ, and in this case, Azure AI Foundry Agent Service. Okay. You put in your Azure AI project endpoint, and this is what I was talking about that needed to be public, or at least until you have that aggregator. So put that in there. Okay. And then that's like sort of this is a sort of the piece that also, again, you know, when you're a technical person, you're expecting this to be a lot of configuration now, right? So I've now connected this up. This has got Azure Active Directory. I've got this guy here running in this project. His details are here. Here's the identity. He's running behind this specific endpoint, blah, blah, blah. You could also publish this to a channel if you wanted to, right? That's one direction. But again, this is all connected up now. Then you go into Copilot Studio. Okay. You're in Copilot Studio, you create an agent, okay? Which just new agent, build new agent. Then you'll see here on the side, got all this good stuff down here. Now, this has also changed 17 million times in the past, I don't know, 6 months. Karaka, I don't know, you could probably back me up here, but these things have also, like, these buttons have changed.
Yeah,
like
no, completely. It's changed, a lot. Yeah. The pop-up is similar to what you would experience in the old experience or standard experience. But yeah, the buttons on the right-hand side is completely different. And something else that you can't check, which I found I could check with the standard, especially when it comes to tools and MCP servers, is on the standard with the MCP servers, you could toggle on and off the functions or the actions that comes with the MCP server. I haven't seen that in a new experience yet.
Correct. Yeah, they're that grayed out.
Exactly.
Yeah, 100%. So then I typed in what I want the agent to do. So it's behavior, it's citation, what it needs to do with timestamps, etc., all that stuff. the detailing of what it is that I wanted to do, sunlight, circadian rhythm protocol, etc., etc. Then now you click on tools, right? And so now you're going to add a tool, okay? Now here you do have connectors, right? Now, Azure AI Foundry Agent Service, it is here, okay? Now, there's a whole bunch of stuff here. There's 11 things that you can click on, and you'll see that there's this invoke agent over here, which would be the logical choice. Okay, I'm going to invoke the agent. So you add the invoke agent. It's got the authentication mode. It's user as the authentication mode. It's going to authenticate as me. Happy days. And then you open up this inputs. And you're like, okay, now what do I need to fill in here? What is what, and what should I set where, right? And it actually turns out nothing, because it figures it out for you, right? Which I found pretty rad. So this AI piece over here, if you tick value and you think you know what value needs to go in there, you don't. AI does. And so you just say that, invoke agent, and it's going to invoke the agent. And that's just as simple as it possibly is. It's going to figure out which agent to invoke based on the instructions that I placed inside of this. And so then you'll see I spun it up a little bit earlier, and I said, what does Andrew say about NSDR? And you can see the reasoning. It lists the agents. It finds out which agent it wants to use. So you see I've got more than one agent. It finds out which agent I want to use and how to engage with it. And then it goes ahead and it does what it needs to do. And it calls everything that it needs to do and brings it back in. And there I have my health agent. Just like that. Now, if I wanted to ground it into if I wanted to sort of start adding my data to it, now all I would do is inside of Microsoft Foundry. Remember, I've got my agent over here. I've got my playground. If I wanted to do it on a more permanent basis or whatever the case may be, I can start adding under knowledge, right? So I can start adding whatever it is. If I wanted to start adding JSON. So I've got a application. Show you now. Called Stress Bar. And Stress Bar originally started as a thing where it was a fork of this guy's. He basically took his whip. I took my Aura Ring and whatever's inside of my phone, my health. So I've got a little app that I wrote on here, and it's called Health Exporter. That. Okay. And all I do is I say export now. And essentially what it's doing is it's putting information into this health export folder. It's a private repo, and it's going to put it in there, and there's a JSON file, right? Now this JSON file can then be passed by whichever agent that I want. So it could be passed by this agent if I wanted it to. So I could then say ingest, and I could go into wherever this guy is. Where did I put it? Data latest, that's the one. So yeah, now and I can take that JSON file, dump it in there, and then the agent can tell me how badly I'm sleeping, how badly I'm eating, or whatever the case may be, is because it's come from my phone. So it's got access to all of the health data that's on my phone. And then that's the next step into telling things. Now, very similarly, I've also got this specific stress bar is a Mac application, and this Mac application has a little bar that sits at the top of my screen. And what it does is it takes that JSON file, and then it connects to WorkIQ. And WorkIQ, it then uses the MCP server that's available for WorkIQ. It then checks my calendar, checks my meetings, It checks who the people were inside my meetings, and then it goes and it checks my aura data as well to say, how stressed was Warren at that specific time during the day, and who were the meetings with? And naturally, it will then say, okay, well, that specific person caused Warren more stress than normal. Now, obviously, it's not 100% accurate, but you get the point. And those are the sorts of things that we can start doing with this information. Now, you could start playing with that information if you wanted it to be inside of Foundry, or if you wanted it to be inside of Copilot Studio. But the point is, you could have the data wherever. So I had it in a podcast, and using Foundry, I was able to put it into Copilot and vice versa. And there's a whole bunch of cool things that I was able to do, but just don't make the same mistakes I did when it comes to cost. Do a couple of tests first. And then finally, if you don't, and look, I work for Microsoft, but we all know on this call that there's a bunch of stuff that we don't necessarily always do with Microsoft products. There's open source ways of doing things. I went and I built a whole bunch of Hermes agents, and you'll see same situation, same data, same JSON. I have a health agent, which is basically a profile in Hermes. Hermes is using a specific model with a specific profile, and Hygeia happens to be, I don't know, some Greek goddess of health, or whatever the case. She's able to then look at that information. She's able to aggregate it. And every morning, she'll send me a Discord. She's running in a container. She'll go, she'll check that file, and she'll say, you had a pretty shitty night's sleep, or, look at that. You did some really good exercise this morning. Keep it strong. Well done. That's what we're doing with this sort of information. Now, it doesn't have to be over Discord. It can be over Teams, because there's a webhook there. So we could do it that way too. If you're so pleased, you could do it over Teams, you could do it over Telegram, over WhatsApp. I chose Discord because at least I can have a private server. And with that, I am going to stop demoing, and I'll go back to my presentation. And yeah, my entire lab that you saw here now was completely infrastructure as code. I can trash it and respin it. If you want more information on how, feel free to give me a ping. You can get hold of me at my website. Yes, I did that because I love Linux. So you can go there, find more information about me, and that's me. Thank you, Brady.